From the show being risked in the beginning on the Friday night death slot to an attempt at making a spin-off series, I'm taking you inside the Shark Tank to uncover the real secret behind the show's success. Like any business, the show's success came from a massive risk, one that TV producers are wary of even today, and that risk was the Friday night death slot. To quote the great singer Rebecca Black, you've got to get down on Friday, which means that you're not going to have a ton of people watching TV on a Friday night. Things were about to get crazy in the years to come, as seasons 2 and 3 brought amazing ratings to Shark Tank, with the second season averaging around 5.12 million viewers, and season 3 raising the bar even higher with an average viewership of 6.3 million. Oh yeah, and all of that happened as the show remained in its Friday night slot, which really makes you wonder why Friday ever earned that death slot title. ABC was clearly impressed with the kind of pull Shark Tank had, and though they'd only given short season orders for the first 3 seasons, they went all in on season 4, committing to a full season of 26 episodes of that year. The audience clearly couldn't get enough of the tank, as season 4 managed to post an even higher average viewership, clocking in 6.92 million viewers. Now I bring up season 4, and it's pretty clear that this was the beginning of the show's glory days, as the ratings continued to skyrocket over the next couple of years. In fact, season 6 stands as the show's most watched season, with an order of 29 episodes that averaged over 9 million viewers. I feel like I keep saying this over and over, but the show was still on Fridays, and that just makes the numbers even more insane. That was the highest viewership Shark Tank has ever achieved, but they still get rock-solid ratings every single night. This might raise a question: was the Friday night death slot a myth all along? After seeing the meteoric success of Shark Tank on Fridays, it totally looks that way, but the answer to that is sadly no. Shark Tank is the exception that proves the rule, because TV has a long history of letting shows die with a whimper on Fridays. The real question, in my opinion, is what makes Shark Tank special? What mojo does it have that allows it to do the impossible? Lucky for us, one of the sharks themselves has answered the question, with Daymond John explaining the moral of this story to The Wrap. His expert take is that the show positioned itself exactly the way businesses should position themselves, and that you want to create something a little different, with a unique selling proposition, and position it where your competitors aren't. The horror stories about Fridays had actually helped ABC and Shark Tank, ironically, as those fears made sure that there wasn't anything especially appealing on TV that day. There was an opportunity for a show to fill in that gap, but it had to be something special to draw an audience. It turns out that people will make time on their Fridays to watch a show, but only if the show is really, really good. That brings us to an interesting question. What about Shark Tank is so uniquely appealing? Well, I'd say that the general concept of the show is hard to say no to. We live in a world where corporations can be insanely powerful, and while the average person hates that, would any of us pass up an opportunity to become a billion-dollar CEO? If Sundar Pichai asked me to run YouTube instead of making videos for it, this channel would close up shop. The hurdle for most people, of course, is that businesses cost money to start, and who has that kind of money lying around? You'd need a rich person to invest in your idea, but who has rich people in their contacts list? That's the opportunity that Shark Tank offers. A chance to go in front of actual billionaires, and maybe, just maybe, convince them that you have a business worth their investment. For a lot of people, the appeal of reality shows is the prize. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire wouldn't be as compelling without the potential for someone to win $1 million, right? But unlike a game show, Shark Tank is a little more fair. If you genuinely have a good business idea, there's no way you won't get a shark in your corner. So basically, all these shows are about wish fulfillment. But the wish fulfillment of Shark Tank is more believable. It helps that there's proof of the promise of Shark Tank. After all, there are loads of products and businesses out there that started off on Shark Tank. One that Daymond John helped make a reality in 2011 was Bombers, a company that aimed to make socks. The idea being that whenever someone bought a pair, they'd donate one to a homeless shelter. The company has been so successful, they've branched out to other clothing items, and they've donated over 50 million of them to shelters in America. A few years later, Barbara Corcoran went in on The Comfy, a blanket that looked like a hoodie that you could wear. And at this point, the product has achieved a pretty respectable amount of sales, even if they had to get parodied on the internet along the way. Barbara also invested in Cousins Maine Lobster, an idea from Sabin Lomack and Jim Silikas to bring the delicious flavors of Maine lobster to the West Coast. They were able to expand from a single food truck to a fleet, and they ventured past LA to footholds throughout the country. And the restaurant regularly racks up tens of millions of dollars in sales. These businesses each came with their own risks, as it's hard to make a profit from a company so focused on donations, and transporting food cross-country is a logistic challenge. But then, putting Shark Tank on Friday nights was pretty challenging too, and they've shown that fortune favors the brave. In a way, that's the message of the show overall. These aren't the most flashy ideas in the world, and you don't have to have a business idea that'll make you a massive corporation, and one that would make people's lives easier or better, even if it's in the smallest way. The sharks on the show are actual business owners, and Mark Cuban in particular is a billionaire, so they know that every successful company begins with a risk, and they also recognize a venture with potential when they see one. That attitude of giving a shot to people who deserve it, that goes back to the very origins of Shark Tank. ABC and the show's producers took a chance on it once, and they went so far as to risk the fate of the project on the Friday death slot, but they succeeded against all odds. While we're on the point of Shark Tank taking risks, they haven't stopped at just one show, with ABC once trying out a spin-off called Beyond the Tank. The show certainly had an interesting idea, revisiting old guests of Shark Tank to see how their business was doing, and that also included people that the sharks had rejected. The series kicked off with high hopes in 2015, which, remember, was the high point of Shark Tank's ratings. Unfortunately, this show never managed to build up much steam, with the early episodes achieving ratings on par with earlier seasons of Shark Tank before tumbling down across the later episodes. ABC ultimately decided to abandon Beyond the Tank, declining to renew the show in 2016, and continuing to throw their weight behind the original. Hey, not every risk can pan out, right? Whether it was the show's concept or format or just a lack of interest from the audience, Beyond the Tank stumbled and had to be canned. I'm sure we can look forward to more spin-offs in the future, though Hollywood has spent most of the 2020s in a state of flux, so who knows? From an effort to expand the Shark Tank franchise, to the show being risked in the beginning on the Friday night death slot, that was your glimpse inside the Shark Tank to find the real secret behind the show's success.